yo, Snoop K on the mic. This one for all my time disgraced geisha bitches. Yeah. But we back in the day, 16th century, Sengoku era, straight feudal energy. Samurai on the rise, Ganyo in the mix. Oda, Tokugawa fixing conflicts quick. Ninja creeping in the shadows, silent and swift. Castles fortified, loyalties to give. Bushido gold, honest in the heart. Blades clashing, battlefields to art. Sengoku times can be wild and crazy sizzle. Samurai life, it's the warlord fizzle. Feudal Japan in the house like a dread sizzle. History in the rhyme, feel the ancient sizzle.
Before we begin, what do you think of my totally accurate samurai attire, right? You know, I'm following the Lockley Logic on this one, that nothing's written down that the samurai didn't dress like this, right? They weren't dressing like this, you know, the chain, t-shirt, the bandana thing, you know, especially the long hair, right? You know, that's definitely in keeping with the samurai, right? Having your long hair all over the place. You know, this is the Lockley Logic. It's not written anywhere that they didn't do this, so, you know, they did. And it's not written anywhere that I can't be a samurai, so I am. Look, I have a sword. According to Thomas Lockley, that's all it took. I'm officially a real samurai. Look at me. Look at me. Look at that. It's just that easy. The government doesn't want you to know that it's just that easy. That you can just, you know, you can just become a samurai. Put on some clothes and wave a sword around, and that makes you a samurai. The fingerless gloves, especially. The samurai known for their fingerless gloves, you know, a bunch of biker samurai. That's a free idea, by the way. Go ahead and run with that. But here's Thomas Lockley, and gosh, I don't have it like having my hair in my face. But here we go. Here's Thomas Lockley, and he's upset, okay? He's upset, but he's not to the point where he wants to cry about things. He wants to put on a show, but he wants to complain. And so to facilitate that complaining, we have Lance Lee, who runs a minor YouTube channel out of Tokyo called the Lance Lee Podcast. And it says, the premier podcast in Asia. I'm not so sure about that, but who knows? You know, I don't live over there, but I think that's a stretch. I think that's a stretch that probably Pokemon might be a little more popular. A podcast about Pokemon, a podcast about Genshin Impact would probably be much more popular. A podcast about K-pop, probably the more premier-y than Lance here. But Lance is kind enough to open up his platform to English speakers and beyond over on his channel. And if you'd like to learn more about him, I'll put a link down in the description. You could check out Lance Lee's premier podcast that apparently all of Asia is eating up. But this is what he had to say about what he does. So just explaining who this man is that Thomas Lockley is sitting with, so we can get into this with a proper context, you know, so we're not confused on who these people are, you know, with the limited information we have on them, okay? So this is what he says. He says, constantly seeking growth and connection, I'm humbled to present our podcast. More than an inspiration hub, we create a space where guests' reliable stories resonate, showing shared perspective on life. Through interviews, we bridge the gap between our audience and diverse individuals. Our podcast offers conversations with authors, military service persons, finance experts, entertainers, and media personalities for everyone. We believe that sharing guests' experience fosters connection, helping listeners feel engaged with the world, explore industries, ignite ideas, and gain a fresh outlook on life through our podcast. Seeking inspiration and connection? Join our podcast. We're confident you won't be disappointed and are grateful to be part of your journey. And that's what Lance has to say about this. Even though it kind of looks like a Dr. Phil episode happened with him and Thomas Lockley here. So let's take a listen. We've got some spectacular I don't know. Let's just listen to what Thomas has to say.
Now, what about the African samurai?
Yep.
Now, you've had some controversy with that. You were telling me just before this that you have some friends that really love you because of this book.
And people that hate me because of this.
All right, let's be clear. I don't hate Thomas Lockley. All right? I don't know anybody who hates him outright. Like, real deal. I'm mad at this guy for existing, right? There are people who want him out of Japan for what he's done. Absolutely. There are people who want him out of academia for what he's done. He's an English teacher with Nihon University, you see, English professor, if you will. And I use that. He's an assistant professor, so that's why I use the bunny ears, because it's like, what does that mean? What does it matter, right? In the grand scheme of things, the kicker about him is that he published this book about Yasuke, the African samurai that they're talking about over here. Sorry, my hair's in my mouth. I hate having my hair down, dude. I hate it. So please appreciate the fact that I am wearing a historically accurate Japanese outfit here. Just ask Assassin's Creed and Thomas Lockley, right? You don't. It's not written down they didn't dress like this. It's not written down they didn't have their hair in their mouth all the time. But whatever. So anyway, Thomas Lockley is explaining to Lance Lee about the Assassin's Creed video game, and I wanted to hone in on this, then we'll skip ahead to where he's complaining about what's going on with people reacting to him, the poor little fella.
I hate you. What is that about?
Well, there's recently a computer game being announced. It'll be released, I believe, later on this year. It's called Assassin's Creed Shadows.
There in my mouth. I hate it. I really hate this, guys. Please appreciate this, okay? Going through I'm suffering so much for you right now to wear this historically accurate Japanese attire. It's just hair in my mouth and Thomas Lockley. Ugh.
It's set in Japan, and lots of people have been waiting for years for one of this franchise, Assassin's Creed, to have a one set in Japan.
Now, I'm impressed that there's a man that is presumably late 40s, like Thomas Lockley, having zero clue about the Assassin's Creed franchise. Zero. He calls it a computer game at that, so he's like negative gamer. Like, he's never even heard of anything beyond Minesweeper and Solitaire, okay? And I love this innocent thing that he plays, even though he was on a podcast with them that he explained who Yasuke was and how the game uses the history and merges it together and stuff like that over on Spotify. Now, we can't listen to that because Spotify is really, restrictive about what they are allowing to be transformed, if you will. YouTube, on the other hand, doesn't really care so long as you're not directly ripping somebody's content through.
And the protagonist, the main character, or one of two main characters in this computer game.
This computer game. I don't know if it's a computer game. You could be playing it with dice. You could be playing it with crayons. You could be playing it together in the dark with a spinning bottle. I don't know. It's a computer game, and those are very confusing and scary to a man born after they existed and most likely rose to prominence and grew up around the internet and the existence of PC games, console games, handheld games, and all those other ones.
Is Yasuke, the African who served Oda Nobunaga, Japan's greatest warlord, and fought by his side at his death, essentially. And Assassin's Creed have resurrected Yasuke to be one of the main characters in their game. Now, some people love.
All right. So what he's explaining is what's going on with the game, what he pretends to know about it, okay? Obviously, he's a lot more educated on this. And why I wanted to attract your attention to this is how Lance reacts to this information. So you know who he's dealing with here. He's dealing with somebody who is on board with rewriting Japanese history.
This. Some people hate this. And because I'm the person that originally resurrected Yasuke and did the research into who he really
originally resurrected Yasuke, okay? So he's taking credit now for elevating this character he's created, not the real Yasuke. We know about the real Yasuke. He was a servant. He carried a dagger. He was not a warrior. He did not fight in great battles. He was barely with Nobunaga long enough to learn how to parry a sword and maybe draw it. He did not have time to learn anything about Japanese culture, perhaps beyond a little bit of communicative Japanese, right? In order to communicate, I am hungry, I am hurt, I am sad, I am happy. These sort of things in order to make his life as a servant, I don't know, possible. This is what we know. Again, there's like 3 paragraphs on this guy, and that's it. Lockley has extrapolated everything from his own, like, Well, it doesn't say in the history books that they did not. So I guess we will presume that it is okay to tell the Japanese people their own history. I imagine that's how he did that. He did like the lobster clause. It's like, tell the Japanese their own history.
He was and where he came from and what he did and possibly the possibilities about where he went to.
What year was this that you did this? Did you resurrect him?
Okay, so resurrect. They keep using that word, right? They keep using that resurrect word, right? Because he was dead. Everybody forgot about him, okay? What they go on to say about him blows my mind, okay? Here we go.
That book was published in 2019, 5 years ago.
No one had done it prior to you.
He had often been in a fictional character or a basis for a fictional character. For example, the manga Afro Samurai. So he's...
Okay, so yes, in Japan, the legacy of Yasuke is often used by fictional properties like Afro Samurai and several others that have come out because, again, the excitement behind having this to appeal to a wider audience is too great for corporations to resist most of the time. So they create a fictional property about him. They don't, however, like Assassin's Creed and Thomas Lockley, insist that their fictional creation is fact.
Basis for Afro.
That was before your book?
Yeah, all of these mangas and animes used him as a basis for their main characters.
So they knew he existed.
Yeah, he's
well known.
He's well.
He's so well known that nobody until 2019 ever bothered to compile all of this information about him that Thomas Lockley just apparently is the only guy on the face of the planet to have ever found. Yasuke was so well known and celebrated in Japanese history that there were only 3 goddamn paragraphs about him in all of recorded Japanese history, and the guy just vanished until the 1960s when a communist showed up and started trying to pump him through as a children's book character. That's what the reality is. This blew my mind when I heard the two of them say, like, he's legendary, everybody knew, he's very well known. Then why did it take till 2019 for anybody to connect the dots that he was a legendary samurai, to produce that anywhere at all in a non-fictional manner, right? And I'll add to that, again, that Lockley's book is listed in Japan as a fiction book and in the English-speaking market as a non-fiction book, okay? He understood what he was doing. And again, just to encapsulate this is a white Englishman that is profiting off of a dead African slave. The lies that he made up about this dead African slave.
Well known among.
But you're the
people
first one to do a full
to bring
book
him
on
out,
it.
bring the man out.
I was going to say something because
work.
He's the first one to ever do this. The first one to ever do this, right? So well known, so well celebrated, nobody else had ever decided to record the vast and wonderful history of Yasuke, this legendary African samurai.
back in the 70s when I was here, there was a guy that was a teacher. He's also a
Back in the 70s. Gee, back in the 70s, when the U.S. was having a lot of racial trouble, it was just coming out of the civil rights movement in the 60s and still adjusting to desegregation and the efforts made there. So, what do you think this professor was trying to say to you as a man clearly from the USA and clearly from an African background? Do you think he was trying to pander to you, Lance? Do you think he was trying to say, you have a place here too? Come, let me tell you about this one instance that I'm now going to blow up into something it never was to make you feel like you belong here. And that's the problem with this, is a lot of what the Japanese do is they try to make people feel comfortable. They try not to be in the way. They try not to disrupt. And then in come these Westerners that are like, you know what? You're totally wrong about your own history, so I'm going to edify you, you dumb Japanese person. I really hate this. This is what these two are doing right now. That's what these two guys on camera are doing right now. They are telling you, the Japanese citizen, that you are dumb. That you are dumb because you didn't know this and it was kept from you. the government lied to you about Yasuke. They kept him a secret. They were embarrassed by him.
Professor, it's black professor.
It's Black Professor. They wanted to tell you that, guess what? We have a seat at the table too. Look, I don't bring up William Adams all the time, right? I don't really care that there was a white samurai, that there was an English samurai way back before Yasuke, okay? I don't care. You wanna know why? Because that's not how I base my identity. It's not where my interest in Japan comes from. I like the culture. I like the people. I like their neat little cars. I like the K-trucks. They're neat little things. I like Super Sentai. I like Kamen Rider. That's where I come from on this. I'm not interested in rewriting these people's culture so that I have a seat at their damn table. Okay? When you enter into a culture like Japan's, you need to take your shoes off, right? Obey the rules of entering a home in Japan the same way you obey the rules of entering their culture. Do not bring your baggage, do not bring your culture into it. You are a guest. No matter how long you live there, no matter how long you pay taxes, no matter how many times you pay parking tickets, whatever you want to decide legitimizes you as a citizen of Japan. You will always be a guest if you are not blood related to people that have come from that land. All right? That's how it works. I'm sorry, it's not like the USA where it's an open door where anybody who comes through it is an American. Okay? It's not like the USA. It's not like England where anybody who comes through the door is an Englishman. It's not how it works. In Japan, you are granted Japanese citizenship, but you are not ever going to be Japanese. Never. Okay? And guess what? This is exactly what happened with Thomas Lockley, and he found out the hard way what goes on with lying when you try to edify another culture. So let's see what happens. Yeah, let's see.
African samurai.
Well, right now, I'm not quite sure. I've had some nasty comments on my Facebook page.
Nasty comments on his Facebook page. Nasty comments on that Facebook page. Nasty. Absolutely nasty. And that, like, what are we doing? Like, you can't withstand criticism now? Is that your problem, Lockley? Is that why you ran to Japan? Because they don't really practice saying no, so you just figured you'd get away with whatever you wanted? They don't have a culture of obstruction, so you figured just do whatever you wanted, right, pal? Is that how it's gonna go? And then you got a little kickback, so you decided, I think I'll run and hide.
I've decided to take down all my family photos from my Facebook page, my own stuff.
From Japanese, you've been getting these nasty comments? Or would you rather not say?
Actually, to be honest with you, yes, a few from Japanese, though.
He seems genuinely bewildered by this, that the Japanese people would have any protesting bone in them whatsoever, that they would resist having their culture brutalized, plundered, and profited from.
This is the first time ever that I've had anything controversial from Japanese people about Yasuke. Yasuke is seen as a hero in Japan.
He's seen as a hero, guys! Yasuke is seen as a hero in Japan. Please, Japanese viewers, let us know down in there just how big. Is he like in a parade? You guys have a giant floating Yasuke balloon that goes through the streets of Tokyo and everyone goes, Yasuke's the greatest samurai ever! But in like Japanese, because I don't speak Japanese, so like, let me know down below if that's how that worked, but I highly doubt it. But yeah, it took until 2019 to accumulate all this information that verifies the heroic status of Yasuke, but he's a hero in Japan, celebrated from all corners of the islands.
And even in the 70s, he was a hero.
Oh, in the 70s, he was a hero. That's right. I remember Yasuke would he was Kamen Rider's sidekick. Sorry, I got the Rider kick mixed up. He was Kamen Rider's sidekick. That's right. When they were digging up Kamen Rider there and he was in the Nazi coffin and they popped that open and Shocker got a shock when they found Yasuke. Right? That's who was in there. Yasuke, right? And that's how that goes. Yasuke! Ha! Yasuke! Ha! And that's the song goes, right? And no, that's not it at all. In fact, hairs in my face. But yeah, it's not it at all, right? Right. That's not it at all. Yasuke was a completely unknown figure until, well, I would guess that the Afro Samurai manga was probably the first one that really had the cultural penetration to get anywhere. But there's also the book and the that he's referencing here that was a children's book, right?
And he's only got bigger.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say what some of these comments are, but they're not very nice. And but it's in English. Almost all of these comments or blog postings or massive amounts of stuff on YouTube. Some of them are not necessarily directed at me per se.
Yeah. They're not directed at you. They're directed at the lies that you told. That's the thing, Thomas, okay? Nobody hates you. Nobody wants you dead, okay? And if you're out there and you want to do harm to this guy, get a life, okay? He's just a weirdo. He's just a guy that took advantage of a situation that nobody was paying attention to. It's nobody's fault. It's one of those things where you don't know you need a law until somebody breaks it, okay? Until somebody gives you a reason to put up that law, right? And now there needs to be restrictions on people just making stuff up about the Japanese culture. That it needs to, if it's listed as a fiction book in Japan, it must be listed as a fiction book everywhere else. You cannot pass off your lies as truth to a culture just because the language barrier is there, okay? You just expect Japanese people not to notice that the English version is treated as fact and the Japanese version is fiction, okay? This is a huge problem. So, Lockley, again, nobody hates you. Nobody wants you dead. I promise, okay? Nobody. They just want you to stop lying. They want you to admit that you made things up to profit and then cease and desist doing that, okay? It's not that hard. It's not that hard.
Say,
It's the idea.
is the idea. That's it. And I've decided not to give them credence by watching, but I get reports from some people. I've got some beautiful messages on Instagram and things from people I don't know saying, you must be having a hard time at the moment. Keep fighting the good fight, kind of.
Keep lying. Keep lying. That's right. Yep. Keep fighting the good fight to lie about things. That's right. See, this is the problem, Thomas, is that when you create a pocket of false history and people want to identify it because it rewards their confirmation bias, guess what? You've now created people who are angry with the truth because it's not conforming to the lie that you created. Do you understand the danger here? Do you understand how far people can get out of alignment with reality? Because, oh, well, this one guy in Japan, he produced a book that took, I don't know, 100 or more years to finally get all the information together about this supposed superhero of Japan. This cultural landmark of Japan that nobody else ever put together. Now they're going to treat that as fact and go around being angry at people like me and the Japanese who say, no, this is not how it went. Yasuke was actually a person who had a really extraordinary life, but it was in no way the status of a legendary samurai. And this is really what's infuriating to me about this whole thing, as I said throughout all of this coverage. The Japanese were merciful to Yasuke. No one they had ever encountered looked like him. Nobunaga tried to scrub the African off of him, tried to scrub the black off. Okay? He thought he was dirty. Multiple times, Nobunaga ordered his servants to bath Yasuke to try and clean him off. Couldn't understand it. Okay, add to that, he was very tall compared to most of the Japanese. There were other Japanese who were about his height, so he wasn't extraordinary in the sense that nobody else on the island was as tall as him, but he was an outlier in that he was an outsider who was also tall. And this is the thing, is tall, by the way, is 5'10" in a land where people are 5'3"-ish at that time, okay? So it's not like he was like 7 feet tall or anything, or like a starting center for the Boston Globetrotters, or excuse me, Harlem Globetrotters. I know sports. Whatever, I know sports. But this is where Lockley is. He's trying to defend himself. He's trying to come out and he's trying to say, oh, well, you know, these people online, they make up such a fuss, but there are all these other people that really like it and enjoy it. So they're the bad guys. I'm the good guy.
I think, and I'm not fighting any fight.
You're not in the fight.
But it's lovely to have people, just random strangers.
That's the majority. That's the majority of people, I think.
It's not the majority of people. It's not. The majority of people don't care, to be honest. And I know that kind of sucks for people like me and you that actually do invest themselves in this whole mess that's what's going on here and the abusive culture that's happening in Japan at the hands of this corporation and others. But in reality, the majority of people do not care if Yasuke is real or not. They don't. They've got better things to do with their lives. They do. And that doesn't mean you and I are wrong for caring. People care about the moon, even though they'll never go there. People care about the bottom of the ocean, and they'll never go there. People care about the tops of mountains that they'll never climb, okay? It's okay to take an interest in something in which you're not directly tied to, okay? But what's not okay to do is lie and misrepresent what's actually happening in the culture around this. Yasuke is not a hero. He was never a hero. He was not a celebrated figure in Japan. Why did it take till 2019 to compile any credible I wouldn't even say credible, any information that verifies his heroic status, okay? Because the 3 paragraphs we had before is that he existed, he served Nobunaga, he carried some kind of weapon, and that was it. When he died, when Nobunaga died, Yasuke went to defend Nobunaga's son. And for a while, he was able to ward off the people that are trying to get to Nobunaga's son. And then, when they finally got him down, right? So again, don't envision like this last stand sort of battle he had, because that wasn't it at all. A person who doesn't know how to use a sword is a lot more dangerous than a person who does. All right, so standing there, waving a wakizashi around as fast as he could, around, perhaps in circles, that's pretty imposing to somebody who is trained and may not know how to deal with somebody who's doing more of a lawnmower maneuver than any kind of practice technique, okay? And again, he didn't hold him off for hours or days or anything like that. He just protected him long enough for a general to show up from the opposing clan to say, no, don't kill him, he's not even human. And after that, he was jailed and presumably let go. I'm of the impression that he died in jail, but there is a letter apparently that says that he went out and left the whole situation behind and went off into life somewhere in the world. But that's how it is. It's not Lockley's Lies, where he was some celebrated character. There's statues of Yasuke all over the place. Children sing songs about him. Ultraman had a team up. None of that. None of that. Okay? And that's the reality of it. Despite what Lance and despite what Thomas Lockley want to tell you, the truth of the matter is that Yasuke's honorable life never reached the status of being a hero or the top of any type of cultural ladder in Japan. But until the next one, guys, good luck out there.